All right, everybody, continuing with the notes now for Chapter 3. We're going to pick up with Section 6 of your notes, talking about selection strategies for MVPDs. Now, there's two major ways that they make money. One is through you and me, Joe's subscriber. And they get us to sign up for service and to sign up to add on for different services. And that's a big bulk of it. Also, they make money by selling advertising. Now, normally we would think of the advertising as being on a particular network that's carried by the cable company, but the local cable operators also have times in which they can sell spots. A company's overall strategy may also include some of these things: lobbying for regulatory advantages with the federal government mostly, but state government as well. Minimizing tax ramifications. Supporting research and development of new technologies. Planning for growth, both in terms of geography in areas that are booming, and also planning for growth in terms of the growth of the company as a whole, different services they provide, different ways to branch out. And that includes consolidations and mergers, which is, as we've talked about in previous chapters, one of the major ways that a corporation can grow. From the perspective of a single program network, the goal is to make money for the parent corporation by selecting programs that attract audiences that advertisers want to reach. Now we're not talking so much about the local cable operator. We're now talking about the networks in particular, your Discoveries, your A&Es, your Comedy Centrals, all those guys. Now, if one channel is going to go after a certain demographic, other co-owned channels normally need to target other demographic groups. A good example of this would be Viacom. Viacom owns NTV, VH1, Comedy Central, BET, CBS Sports Network, and a few others in there as well. And each of those channels is going to go after a certain segment of the population, so that by diversifying their channels and reaching those different niche audiences, they can grab an overall net audience. Some roadblocks to the evolution of program delivery: completely on demand or wireless, or perhaps both. There's the overlapping of technical, legal, economic, and marketing circumstances that makes it so that you have these challenges in order to be able to not just have content, but distribute it. And then delivery and reception of content for its intended audiences, whether it be the demographics, whether it be the geographic location of the service area that you're providing, the geographic location of where your audience lives, if you can access them, especially in terms of cable, if you can provide service to certain segments of the population. And then the logistics of being able to make sure all those things happen, because you have to have the cable to run from the service center to the customer, and be able to provide a certain amount of bandwidth in order for those things to happen. Location and income. Distribution and reception technology in urban areas is far advanced over the rural areas. Again, densely populated areas make it easy for cable operators to be able to provide service to them. One concept that really plays in here is the idea of tech dependency. And this is a simple definition that I like for tech dependency. Part B needs Part A in order for Part B to work. So if you think about it with the cable subscription service, a lot of cable companies will have their own set-top box in order for you to be able to receive channels, or to be able to use services like video on demand, or DVR services. So you have to have the set-top box in order to be able to receive these various services from the cable company. Your wireless provider needs to be able to have towers that can reach you in your area. You need to have a compatible phone to be able to receive the particular service that your carrier offers. So there is tech dependency. You have to have a certain thing in order to get the thing you want. And then there's differences in the logistics of a service, talking about things like video on demand versus pay-per-view. Are we going to be more attracted to having a subscription for having video available for us whenever we want it? We just go in and whatever time of day of the week that we want to watch something, we can go and watch it. Pay-per-view may be attractive for those that only want a one-off sort of thing, or for things like special live sporting events. Boxing is very popular on pay-per-view, wrestling as well. And I should say a DVR. Is a DVR required for the particular customer? Do they need to have that particular service? So all these things require a certain amount of technology and a certain amount of connection and connectability, and being able to provide some of these different features. And that's going to be a huge consideration when it comes to how these companies provide services to its customers, and hoping that a certain number of customers will be wanting to get these different types of services. Capacity. Hybrid fiber and coax cable, HFC for short, digital compression of video signals, they all increase cable's broadband carrying capacity. So it's the idea of being able to have more traffic flowing through the cable line, whether it's through the quality of the cable or it's through the compression rate of the content. As you compress data, you can send more of that data along in the same space. Also, something that has played into this is the end of analog over-the-air television. In 2009, the United States went all digital. So in that aspect, you've also got broadcast outlets that are now providing more content on their channels. You don't just have channel 17, you now have 17.2 and 17.3, and just about every TV station in the United States now has more than one stream available on its channel that you can pick up over the air. The rapid expansion of 4G and Wi-Fi makes video via tablet and smartphone possible, and soon in areas as we go along in the next few years, 5G technology. Operational bandwidth. This is the width of the frequencies that signals can use. That operational bandwidth has increased over time. So we're talking about kilohertz up to megahertz up to gigahertz, the amount of data that can be transmitted within a certain space, within a certain amount of time. All of that has gotten exponentially better in the last 20 to 30 years. Digitalization. Cable has had to use a phased rollout strategy in its upgrade to digital transmission. What this basically means is that cable couldn't just instantly upgrade everything just at the snap of a finger and expect its customers to be able to just kind of follow along with them. That tech dependency issue that we talked about earlier on. So, for example, you might not have customers that have the equipment at home to be able to receive all the services that you would have to offer. During the analog to digital transition, there were several homes that did not have high definition digital television sets. So you had to have a set-top box converter in order to be able to use your old television to watch the new digital transmissions. So in cable, it's the same way. As cable upgrades and provides new features and services, it needs to do it in such a way where you either have backwards compatibility or that you have the ability to be able to have both the new service and the older service for a certain period of time until all of your customers can get on board, whether they need to purchase equipment themselves outright or the cable company has to provide the infrastructure to be able to get the new service out to customers. So these things do take a period of time. Satellite was always digital, but it was restricted by the number of transmission channels that was available to them. And this has a lot to do with the frequency allocations that satellite television has had. They could not necessarily expand the number of offerings that it has had because it was restricted, just as there's AM radio, FM radio, the channels that are allocated to broadcast television. There's also a spectrum of the airwave that is allocated to satellite. And they were limited in terms of the space they had available to them to be able to provide a certain number of channels and a certain number of services. Digitizing video for consumers' ownership and use. And this has seen a huge progression over time, going from videotape to DVD to Blu-ray, now to streaming video, digital downloads. All of that has taken time for that progression to happen, although the way that those things change has it's become much more fast-paced and rapid-paced as we go along. High-definition television. The book here is a little outdated on this. The thing to take away from here is that while the vast majority of TV programming is available in high definition, there's still some people that may be consuming media using standard definition. Someone that, for whatever reason, just isn't willing to give up that old school television, the piece of furniture, the actual appliance. People still watching VCR tapes and that sort of thing. So as much as we think of it as standard, kind of the norm these days, HD is not 100% saturated. And when newer technologies emerge, things like 3D technology, holographic technology, there's going to be a need for enough media available for consumers to invest in that technology. There are those people that always want the latest and greatest thing and are willing to go out and buy it as soon as it's available on the market. But most people are going to want to be able to have a certain practical use for the things that they buy. And if there's not a lot of offerings for a particular newer technology, or if the price is too prohibitive in their minds for them to take advantage of that technology, it's going to take a while before that technology is embraced. And that means coming down in cost and the availability of content to be able to be consumed with that new device. On-demand television and audio. On-demand services have the potential for greater profitability. Many experts predict that very few live broadcasts will occur in the future, except for things like breaking news and sports and things like that. And we're starting to see more and more of that in many ways as we have become more and more accustomed to various streaming services, to the point where we're even watching current television on a delay of sorts by using various apps made available by cable services and by networks. On-demand television and audio, some factors for change. Development of smart set-top boxes have created some changes in culture. We've talked about that a little bit. Standardization among technologies to be able to have somewhat of a uniform sort of format that the majority of devices would recognize and use. And consumer willingness to purchase content. Are they willing to buy not just the device, but the things that you would use the device with? Standardizing the standards. So there's been widespread adoption of MPEG-2. This is the main storage format for video and audio, and also for MPEG-4, which deals with video compression. New and complex technical solutions are required to manage the delivery of different content types in an integrated and harmonized way. And challenges in making technology backwards compatible versus making some technologies obsolete. There's, again, that idea that people are not always willing to jump to the latest and greatest, especially if the equipment that they have at the moment is still working fairly well. Not everyone is wanting to buy something new if the thing they have is currently working, just because there's something that's better in terms of quality that is out there, because they're satisfied with what they have. So in those ways as well, people that provide the entertainment and the services need to keep that in mind, and in order to reach a certain segment of the audience, be willing to make certain things available in older formats as well as newer formats, at least for a certain period of time. Interactivity, the ability to respond in real time to programming and especially to advertising. So one of the things that cable has been able to do pretty well is during commercial breaks when you're watching programming, is to be able to, as you're watching a commercial, you might see a pop-up that says, use your remote and click here to learn more. We've definitely been used to that in terms of the web, but we've seen it on cable and satellite as well. This functionality is currently fully resized on computer screens, realized rather on computer screens, but only in limited fashion with cable TV. But again, it is becoming more and more prominent. So this is another good point to take a break. We'll continue with the notes in part C of the video, where we'll start with section 8 of your notes.